The feeling of being behind isn't a personal failure. It's an illusion. It's a signal that you are measuring your life against the timeline you never actually agreed to. We often think that if we just run faster, if we just catch up, the anxiety will disappear. We assume the pressure comes from a lack of progress, but more often, that pressure comes from a lack of trust. Trust in your own pace, trust in your own season. Today, we're going to dismantle the invisible timeline that is draining your joy, and we're going to replace it with a way of growing that actually feels respectful to your energy, because you don't need to rush to become who you are meant to be. Hello, and welcome to Uplifted Living, the podcast for living uplifted. I'm Nick Gilbert, and I'm really glad you're here. This is a space for thoughtful conversations about clarity and living with intention, without the pressure to rush, compete, or constantly measure yourself against others. Let's begin. One of the most misunderstood things about personal growth is the belief that speed equals success. We carry this quiet, heavy sensation in our chests, the feeling of being behind where we should be by this age, behind where our peers seem to be, behind the milestones society handed us. And the frustrating part, even when you are making progress, the pressure doesn't go away. You could be hitting goals, checking boxes, and moving forward, yet still feel that existential exhaustion. Why? Because the problem isn't your movement. The problem is your measurement. When you try to force your life into a rhythm that belongs to someone else, you aren't just tired. You are violating your own capacity. Let's look at where this pressure actually comes from. It usually starts with what I call comparison without consent. You felt this. You open your phone. You look at someone else's progress, their consistency, their business growth, their relationships, and without meaning to, your brain starts a calculation. You think, why is this taking me so long? I should be further along by now. What am I doing wrong? But here's the truth we often ignore. You are comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. I've caught myself doing this even in seasons where my life was going well. Not because I wasn't progressing, but because I was unconsciously borrowing someone else's timeline. I was looking at their harvest while I was still in my planting season. And that comparison quietly drained the joy from my own growth. It's not just unfair to you, it's inaccurate data. You don't see their support system, their sacrifices, their years of invisible work, or their mental health struggles. You just see the result. When you judge your pace by someone else's outcome, you are setting yourself up for a race you cannot win. So if comparison is the trap, what is the solution? It's not to stop looking at others. It's to change how you look at time. Here's the shift that changed everything for me. There is no universal timeline for growth. There is no standard schedule. There is no correct speed. There is only your pace. And your pace is shaped by your unique energy, your current responsibilities, your values, and your specific season of life. When you try to grow faster than you can support, when you ask too much of yourself for too long without enough recovery or margin, progress becomes fragile. Think about it like building a house. If you rush the foundation because you want to get to the impressive part of framing the walls, you might look like you're moving fast. But the moment a storm comes, when life gets busy or stressful, that shallow foundation cracks. But when growth happens at a pace that fits your reality, it integrates, it sticks. Real growth isn't about how fast you climb the mountain. It's about whether you can breathe when you get to the top. One of the most common reasons we burn out is that we treat our energy like a machine, expecting consistent output every single day. But you are not a machine. You are biological. You have seasons. Accepting that isn't giving up. It's growing up. It's realizing that a gentle pace is often the fastest way to get to where you're going, because you don't have to keep stopping to fix what you broke by rushing. If this is resonating with you, if you feel that tension in your chest loosening just a little bit, I want you to consider subscribing. We talk a lot about mental well-being here, but not the hustle harder kind, the kind that actually sustains you. Now, let's move from the philosophical to the practical. How do you actually find your pace in a world that demands speed? When you stop rushing, something unexpected happens. Clarity improves. Decisions feel simpler. You stop asking, how fast can I move? And you start asking, how can I move in a way I can sustain? I want you to try an exercise I use called the respectful pace audit. Whenever you feel that urgency creeping in, pause and ask yourself this single question. What would feel respectful to my energy right now? Notice I didn't say what pace is ideal or what pace is impressive. Respectful. Sometimes a respectful pace means pushing a little harder because you have the capacity and the excitement. But often it means doing less on purpose. It means holding steady instead of pushing forward. And sometimes it means resting without guilt, because rest is what makes the next season possible. This leads us to the deepest part of this work: identity integration. When you trust your pace, you stop abandoning yourself to meet external expectations. You stay present. You stay aligned. When you were rushing, you were essentially telling yourself, I am not enough as I am right now. I will be enough when I get there. You are constantly living in the future, which means you are never actually alive in your own life. But when you accept your pace, growth stops feeling like something you chase. It becomes something you live. You realize that the timeline isn't running out. You realize that slow isn't a bad word. In music, the space between the notes is just as important as the notes themselves. Without the pause, it's just noise. Your life needs that space. Your growth needs that margin. So, if you take one thing from this today, let it be this. Trusting your pace doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you grow with your life, not against it. You are already on the path. The work isn't to run faster. The work is to keep walking at a pace that lets you stay present for your life as it unfolds. Next week, we're going to build on this, because once you slow down your pace, you need to protect your focus. We're going to talk about living intentionally in a distracted world and how to reclaim your attention from the noise. If this episode resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who needs a gentle reminder to trust their own pace. Also, be sure to follow the Instagram page at Uplifted Living Podcast. I'll leave the link in the description. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and continue to uplift both yourself and those around you. Thank you for listening.